Our church has been going through a series on prayer, and recently we talked about the very real moments of when we're not hearing from God, when He seems silent, and yet our souls are troubled and weary. I couldn't help but turn to the Psalms of Lament. Something so important for worshipers, both individual and corporate, is the expression of lament to God. The journey of suffering has an abundance of grieving and crying out to God, and this is modeled so well for us in the Psalms in a beautiful and helpful way. Honest conversation with God is one of the most important aspects of intimate and real worship. Have you ever faced seasons of suffering or when you think God has been silent in the midst of injustice or tragedy? I know I found myself asking, God, what do I do when I don't hear from you? There seems to be a couple of dangers here. One is that we start to turn to God with a heart that is bitter. It's a good thing to turn to God in prayer, but the bitterness is evidence that at some point we stop trusting God's wisdom, His power, and His goodness. Instead, we're believing that we know what's best for ourselves better than God. The other danger is that we turn away from God because of a heart that's discouraged. We're essentially saying that we don't trust that the nearness of God is our all-satisfying good. So we give up praying. I love this psalm, Psalm 13, because David struggles with hearing from God, but he avoids these two dangers. And yet he's still honest with God about all of it. This led me to finding a wonderful setting of Psalm 13 by Alisa Turner. Let's take a look at what this says. Verses 1 and 2 say, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me?" And the song lyrics simplify this plea, but with a beautiful weaving 6/8 melody that ends on a descending line. It's melancholy, and it really fits the text well.
I will confess some days I feel forgotten. Seems like you're hiding your face from me. I will admit that I wrestle with my thoughts, struggle with all of the sorrow deep. How long will you leave me here without answers, crushed by the words of my enemies?
Then he asks God to light up his eyes, which I think means to strengthen his faith, so he once again sees and feels God's beauty, majesty, love, and wisdom. He says this in verses 3 and 4. "Consider me, O Lord my God, light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemies say, I have prevailed over him, lest my foes rejoice because I am shaken." And then he ends affirming that he is trusting God's steadfast love. He knows that as a result his heart will rejoice in God's salvation, and he will end up singing over God's bounty to him. Verses 5 and 6 says, "But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me." In the song, I love the way this hopeful and renewed commitment to trust God's love is put to music. The melody takes a vertical leap of an octave up, symbolizing a looking up to God in trust despite the silence. We lift our heads up to look to God in the midst of this.
I will trust your unfailing love. I will rest knowing you're enough. I will give praise through all my days. Oh, you have been good to me.
So we cry out to God and we remember His unfailing love. And as we do, the problems grow smaller, Despair loses its grip. Enemies are defeated. We learn to walk with a greater perspective of His incredible goodness, His wisdom, His power, His nearness to us. May God give you His grace for this journey.